In 360 BC, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato wrote about a powerful civilization of warriors and priests that lived on an island across the sea. He said the Atlanteans were highly advanced, both spiritually and technologically. They had mastered the art of war, and their priests were skilled healers. However, they became greedy and aggressive and tried to invade the Greek mainland. As punishment, the gods sent a great flood which drowned the island and its people. Only 2 brothers escaped and made it to land. Their names were Atlas and Gadeirus, and they survived on the island of Same. Now, you might be thinking this sounds suspiciously familiar. Well, that's because it is. Plato's account of Atlantis is the basis for the modern legend. He described the island as being larger than Libya and Sardinia put together, with a perfect circular harbour in the centre. The capital city was said to be so beautiful that it shone like a jewel. It was surrounded by temples, palaces, and gardens. The Atlantans were said to have been peaceful and prosperous until they grew greedy and warlike. When they attacked the Athenians, the gods flooded the island and destroyed them. But here's where things get interesting. Did Atlantis really exist? Or was it just a story Plato made up to illustrate his philosophical points? Let's start with the skeptics. These are people who say Atlantis was never real. Instead, it was just a story Plato created to teach a lesson about the dangers of greed and hubris. After all, he wrote it 2,400 years ago in a dialogue called Timaeus. There he described Atlantis as a warning to his students, a reminder that even the greatest civilizations can fall if they become too powerful. Plato said the Atlanteans had grown rich and greedy and began to raid other coastal cities. They even tried to attack Athens, but the Athenians fought back and drove them away. In revenge, the Atlantans made plans to invade the next day, but while they were sleeping, the earth shook and the sea flooded the island. Only 2 men escaped, Atlas and Gadeirus, who went to live on the island of Same. So according to Plato, Atlantis was never real. It was just a story he made up to teach his students a lesson. But what do the experts think? Are any of them convinced that Plato was onto something? Actually, many scholars agree that Plato was inspired by a real-life event, but not necessarily the destruction of an entire island. Instead, some say he based his story on the volcanic eruption of Thera, now called Santorini, which wiped out the nearby Minoan civilization around 1600 BC. The eruption was so massive that it triggered a tsunami which may have reached as far away as the Atlantic Ocean. This could have led Plato to believe that the island of Atlantis was destroyed in a single night of earthquakes and floods. Other scholars suggest that Plato's story was inspired by the destruction of the Egyptian city of Heracleion, which sank into the sea after a series of earthquakes around 777 BC. What about those who believe Atlantis was a real place? According to them, Plato's story is just a myth that was meant to explain how such a powerful civilization could have disappeared without a trace. Proponents of this theory point to several pieces of evidence, including underwater ruins, ancient maps, and mysterious artifacts. One of the most famous underwater ruins is located near the Greek island of Antikythera. In 1902, a sponge diver stumbled upon a shipwreck filled with statues, pottery, and other treasures. Further excavations revealed the remains of a large city, complete with streets, houses, and public buildings. Some believe this could be the legendary city of Atlantis. However, archaeologists have not been able to date the site precisely. They estimate that it was built sometime between the 8th century BC and the 3rd century AD, long after Plato's time. Another intriguing site is located off the coast of Spain in an area known as the Pillars of Hercules. According to Plato, the entrance to the Atlantic Ocean was marked by two pillars. Some believe these were the Strait of Gibraltar, which connect the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. Others believe the pillars were located farther east in the Aegean Sea. In 1929, British explorer Gerald Massey claimed to have discovered the location of Atlantis near the Egyptian coast. He pointed to several underwater ruins, including a lighthouse, a temple, and a harbour. However, his claims were never verified by other explorers. One of the most popular theories places Atlantis in the Caribbean. Proponents of this theory believe that Plato was actually referring to the island of Cuba. They point to several pieces of evidence, including the shape of the island, which some believe resembles the circular harbour described by Plato. In addition, Cuba is located near the Bahamas, which contain numerous underwater ruins. Some believe these could be the remains of Atlantis. However, none of these theories have been widely accepted by mainstream scholars. Most agree that Plato's story is just a myth that was meant to teach a lesson about the dangers of greed and hubris. But what if Atlantis really did exist? What would it take to find the lost city? First, we need to understand Plato's description of Atlantis. He said the island was larger than Libya and Sardinia put together, with a perfect circular harbour in the centre. The capital city was said to be so beautiful that it shone like a jewel. It was surrounded by temples, palaces, and gardens. If Atlantis really did exist, then it would have been one of the largest and most powerful civilizations in the ancient world. It would have had a strong navy and a well-organized government. It would have been a center of trade and commerce. And it would have been home to some of the most advanced technology of its time. The discovery of Atlantis would be a monumental event in human history. It would change our understanding of the ancient world, and it would answer one of the most enduring mysteries of our time. But what would happen to the people of Atlantis when it was found? Some believe that the Atlanteans were a highly advanced civilization with technology far ahead of its time. They had mastered the art of war, and their priests were skilled healers. They also had access to vast stores of wealth and resources. If Atlantis really did exist, then its people would have been some of the richest and most powerful in the ancient world. But as Plato pointed out, their greed and hubris led to their downfall. If we were to discover their sunken city, it would be a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. Others believe that the Atlanteans were simply an ordinary people who lived on an ordinary island. They were farmers, fishermen, and traders like everyone else. They had no special powers or abilities. And they were just as vulnerable to the forces of nature as anyone else. If that's true, then finding their sunken city would be a tragedy, a reminder of the fragility of life and the power of the sea. But perhaps the most important question is, do we really want to find Atlantis? Do we really want to uncover the secrets of a lost civilization and disturb their final resting place? Or should we let sleeping giants lie and leave their graves undisturbed? That's a tough question to answer. On one hand, the discovery of Atlantis would be one of the greatest archaeological finds in human history. It would change our understanding of the ancient world and answer one of the most enduring mysteries of our time. On the other hand, it would be a tragedy to disturb the final resting place of a lost civilization. It would be a reminder of the fragility of life and the power of the sea. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to search for Atlantis is up to us. But we should proceed with caution. We should respect the dead and preserve their graves for future generations. Will Atlantis ever be found? Who knows? Maybe one day we'll stumble across an ancient ruin that proves Plato was right. But until then, the legend will continue to capture our imaginations and inspire our curiosity. So what do you think? Do you believe Atlantis really existed, or was it just a story Plato made up? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more videos like it. Thanks for watching.